Boom, there we go. We are live. You are live. It's the Rick Mast Show. It's been a while. I am Charlie Marlow. That is the great Rick Mast. Rick, how the heck are you, buddy?
Man, Charlie, if I was any better, well, I don't know what I do. I've got two different pair of glasses, and I can't figure out which one makes me look more distinguished. Is it these or is it these?
I think it's the darker ones, personally.
Seriously, which
Well,
one would gain us more
distinguished.
followers? Which one would gain? No, forget distinguished. Which one would gain us more followers today? This or this?
I'll tell you what, we have some people
What?
already on. We are live on both YouTube and X. So why don't
Okay.
you do it one
All
more
right.
time for people? Switch glasses
All right.
one
We
more
got
time.
these. We got these. Okay. And then we've got these babies.
All
Okay.
right.
We've got both of them.
So people, let Rick know. I think for being distinguished, it's the darker frames, personally.
Or how about for just general bullshit here on the Rick Mass show?
There you go.
You
But
still
also,
you still think of the dark ones?
well, it's about comfort. Whichever ones are best for you. That's
They're
what we should
both the
go with.
same. Other than these are for close reading, right? And these are for like Daytona, far away viewing from the grandstands. From
Okay.
the grandstands to the backstretch. But if I have to read, like court documents or the Bible, I'll put these on. So,
All right.
I don't know whatever ones make me look more handsome. Yeah.
There you go.
With this face, we're already, you can't help it anyhow. Yeah. I mean, you can't help it anymore.
Sure.
Look at this face, man. As good as it gets, right?
A couple people, though, have said they like the clear ones. So
Well,
that's what
see,
the
there
people
you
are
go.
saying.
All right. We go with the
Hey.
people. I am a people's man. I'm sorry, Charlie. All right, let's go, baby. Let's
No,
go.
hey, you don't have to apologize for anything. I want to start with this, though, because I think it's funny. Let's have a contest of who's living in a colder area. I live in basically
Ooh.
St. Louis, Missouri, specifically Kirkwood, Glendale. You're in what, Rockbridge, Baths, Virginia, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
And I'm going to show you proof right now. Here's my weather app. 0, baby.
Oh, shit. Oh,
0. What do you got?
No, you got me beat. You got me beat, dude. You got me beat. Where am we at?
What do you got?
Where am I at?
14?
14 in Rockbridge Baths.
Still pretty bad.
Hey, wait a minute now. Let me show you where my daughter is.
Okay.
Katie. Check this one out.
-4. Where's Avon? Is that Colorado?
That is Vail, Colorado. Yeah, that's where she's working right now. So, but and I tell her all the time, man, why in the hell would anybody live out there other than skiing? So they had like the other day, Charlie, they were like 8 below 0, 7 below 0, and it had like 18 inches of snow, and they had been under a winter storm advisory or winter storm watch. Man, if we're 8 below here at Rockbridge Baths and 18 inches of snow, it's not only a winter storm warning, it's a winter storm Armageddon. It's just different. And those folks out there, they just drive and live in snow all the time. But where you're at is cold. That's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I walked out to warm the truck up, and it was 1, and it was a little different. Like, I've lived in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio. That's why I'm wearing the Ohio State celebrating. We can get to that later, but if it's 0, 1, 2 degrees, that punches you right in the face the second you walk outside.
Hey, Charlie, you ever been snow skiing?
I have just a couple times, and I actually have not been skiing, I think, since my senior year in high school, which would have been like 2000.
Yeah. Let me tell you how I learned how to ski, right? When I came into the Dillard family and I started dating my bride, Sharon, 50 years ago, dude, and her parents would go ski in a place called Canaan Valley, West Virginia, which is an hour from here. And you go a little bit further west of us, a snowshoe. So pretty decent skiing. Not like Northeast and Colorado. But anyhow, so I'm a 16-year-old kid, and we go out there for the weekend to ski. We rent these cabins, and we get up to go skiing, and I've never even seen them ski or anything like that. I'm 16 years old. It's like 6:30 in the morning. I get up, we eat breakfast. Well, my future father-in-law, he sits down a glass. He fills this glass up with Old Taylor bourbon, right? He says, "Here, Rick, drink this." I'm like, okay. So I sit there and jug that glass of Old Taylor bourbon down. So then the next thing I know, he wraps this flask around my neck, right? The thing goes around the neck with the flask. He fills that thing up with Old Taylor bourbon. He says, "They'll just sip this on the way to the ski slope. Just keep Dude, when we get to the slope, or we get there, and we get my skis, the boots, and all that on. When I get to ride that gauntlet up to the top, when I get to the top, Charlie, I can't even stand up, man. Right? And I, honest to gosh, I don't know how many, maybe first 4 or 5 runs, I'm just on my ass sliding down the mountain. Right? I'm just, I'm kind of pretty much drunk or tipsy, and probably first 4 or 5 runs, I'm sliding. Dude, by the time that afternoon's over with, I'm skiing that whole damn mountain. I got it figured out, and I'm skiing. I'm sobered up. But that's how I was taught to ski. My future father-in-law decided to get me, inebriated and put me up on the mountain, right? And when it was all over, everybody's laughing and carrying on about, yeah, well, that's how you got to teach these youngins, because they'll go down through there and they'll try to ski and they don't know what they're doing and they'll get hurt. Get them drunk like that and they don't get hurt. Have you ever heard anybody learn how to ski like that? No, probably not.
I haven't, but speaking of getting hurt, so again, I think I went skiing maybe 2-3 times. I went snowboarding once. Again, my senior year of high school. It might have been 25 years ago, basically right around now. I think it was the holiday. I think it was either Martin Luther King Day or President's Day, one of those Mondays we were off back in the day, and I broke my collarbone. I broke my left collarbone when I was snowboarding, and so I've not been on a mountain since, except for some sledding with my kids. I would do it again, but we're not really like a skiing family, so it just kind of never came about after that.
Yeah, well, it's fun if you don't get hurt. Actually, Katie, as you know, is out in Vail, Colorado, working at a Stedman clinic in a medical residency. This is her 3rd year. She's supposed to come home, I think, finally next year. But anyhow, she tore up her knee the first year out there. She was skiing and she blew her knee out. And actually, the doctor she works with now is a doctor that fixed her knee. So, but anyhow, another story for another day.
All right. Well, hey, let's get to the NASCAR storylines. We haven't done a show for a while, so the people want to know Rick Mast's opinion on a lot of these things. And I figured let's work backwards from the most recent type stuff. So I think it was last week you got Dale Earnhardt Jr., Junior Motorsports entering a car in the Cup Series for the first time ever. Pretty big names. You got Dale Jr., you got Chris Stapleton on the car with the Travelers Whiskey. Justin Allgaier will try to qualify for the Daytona 500. That's pretty big news. What do you think of that?
Yeah. Excuse me, Charles. Yeah, it is. And, man, you know what? Honestly, past that, the sport needs Junior, right? The sport needs the Chris Stapletons of the world. The sport just needs those things at this time, and that's the part that I find intriguing, or that's the part that I like about it. I mean, yeah, it's cool. Junior Motorsports is in. Everybody's been waiting on Junior Motorsports to do a Cup car. Everybody's wanting Junior Motorsports to do a Cup car. And honestly, Kelly and Dale Jr., and y'all know this, our sport needs a Junior Motorsports Cup team or multiple teams. And but I know you guys, right? And I know it's got to be right, and the money's got to be right, because we're not going to go broke. We're not going to lose everything we've got trying to run Cup just to say we're a Cup team. But it's just to me the big number one thing. It's just a cool deal. It's a thing that our sport desperately needs, I think, at this point, because Junior Motorsports and Dale Jr., I mean, that name, and whether you love him or hate him or whatever the deal is, and whether he wants this attention or doesn't want it or whatever, he's a big, big, big part of our sport. He's a big part of the future of our sport. If he wasn't here, if Dale, when he retired and he didn't have his show and didn't have his race team, that's a big ass void that I'm not sure who would fill. And anytime those guys do something, of note, then it creates a big splash. I mean, that's the biggest splash that's been created, other than what we'll talk about in a little while with Elio and Mike Wallace. But that's a big splash for this sport. And we just, anything we can do to elevate those guys, I think is great. Yeah, of course, Chris Stapleton coming in. What is it? Let's see. What is a whiskey brand? Out of a
Travelers
Yeah,
Is it
travelers.
Traveler or Travelers? I'll look it up.
Oh man, I'm not sure which one it is. My family knows about it. We've talked about it, my kids and all. But him, Stapleton coming in with his deal and being a part of it with Junior Motorsports, Dale Earnhardt, Kelly, and that whole group. It makes for a
Traveler.
interesting traveler. Yeah, traveler makes for a very interesting storyline and something to talk about for us. But my main thing with this is we just need Junior in our sport. We need him front and center in our sport.
How about if I throw this question to you? Do you think you can say, and this isn't necessarily a good thing, but I think it's a fair question. You think it's fair to say that the biggest stars in NASCAR right now are not the drivers and it's owners? It's Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Michael Jordan. Is that fair to say, you think?
I think it is. And how did we get here? I have this conversation, Charlie, with more fans. I was at a restaurant yesterday, and a guy walked up. We were just talking. He was probably, I would say, early 60s, late 50s, and had this very same conversation. And I was talking about, how in our day the sport, the drivers were such heroes, man. And everybody could relate. You could relate to Earnhardt. You could relate to Harry Gant. You could relate, to Sterling. You could just relate to these drivers. And these guys were heroes. Hell, they were my heroes, right? And, we somehow or another we've lost that. I'm not taking anything away from the guys that's in our sport now. They're all very talented and all that, but and I have my reasons for why it's like that, why these guys are like that. But what do we do to change that? And do we need to change that? I mean, back in the early part, if you go back 50s and 60s and through the 70s, and really some through the 80s, everybody was a Ford guy or a Dodge Chrysler guy or a Plymouth guy, right? It seemed like there's always this argument, I'm pulling for Petty because he's Mopar, right? Or I'm pulling for Pearson because he's Ford, Mercury. And so they had this argument: are it the fans or the fans for the manufacturer or for the driver? Well, I can tell you, by the time I got to the sport, it had swapped. If it was for the car or the team, the manufacturer, it had swapped to the driver. Because about the whole tenure of my existence in Cup racing, it was all about the driver. The manufacturer, yeah, that was still important part of it, but it kind of the driver became more important in the conversations and stuff. And now we don't really have the manufacturer being, other than people like to fuss about Toyota. That's all they want to do is fuss about Toyota, being here because it's a foreign company, and it's a lot of untruths about that. They take some criticism they shouldn't take, I think. But then you have there goes Sharon, my wife Sharon. She's walking up the steps here. Hello, Sharon. She's walking up the steps doing something, interrupting my podcast with her beauty. I can't keep my eyes off her when she walks by. So that ran her out of the room. Okay. But anyhow, but somewhere, Charlie, we've lost some of the appeal to the manufacturer, although it's still there. But then we've also lost some of the appeal of the drivers being heroes to the fans, although some of it's still there. Right. So to your original question, yeah, I mean, I think, and I don't know what we do to kind of get back to that, Charlie. It's almost like, and I know this for a fact because I dealt with these guys and I was around thousands and thousands of fans every week and doing appearances. These drivers that I raced against were worshipped. They were hero. I mean, the fans worshipped them like heroes. I witnessed it. I watched it. And I'm not talking about a group of fans. You go to a crowd of fans and there'd be, if there's 500 fans there, they'd be like, 20 of them just being fanatical, what you always hear. I'm talking about if there's 500 fans standing there, all 500 were fanatical, right? I mean, it's here comes Mark will walk through the crowd. Everybody's crazy. The one that gets the most, if you go to these places most of the time, you know who it is? Their action? It's the King. Everybody, when the King walks through that garage there, everybody knows who the King is, right? And he's so approachable, he'll do the autographs for anybody. And if you look, we see so many stories and things being written about the guys, the drivers, and they talk about some of the older guys that's not in the sport, that's gone, like a Tony Stewart, right? Some of those folks, and they're just revered in the way they're talked about and mentioned and all. And it's like those guys are talking about more than the guys that we have coming up. And, I don't know what we do. I don't know what we do to fix that. And I'm not taking away anything from these guys. These guys now, they're very talented. They've all got personalities, but there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect somewhere between these drivers and the fans that we used to have, right, in the 90s. That connection is not. It's just not there. It's not there. And I'm not sure in today's media world, with social media and with everything that goes on, how do we do that? Because the drivers in my day, we were put out there enough for the fans to understand, well, that guy's a hero, right? But then we didn't have the social media, and we didn't have all the things that would go past that with each driver and maybe start pointing out some of that driver's negatives, right? I mean, yeah, they're heroes, but let me tell you something, man. All these guys, we all had our flaws, right? We all had our flaws. So, if you dig deeper into them, maybe you wouldn't like the guys much, even though not really, because they're all pretty decent people. But, Charlie, what the hell was your original question?
The original question
Man,
was
I've rambled
about...
on. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
No. It was about, can you make the case that the owners with the Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Michael Jordan are bigger stars than the drivers? And then so let's spin it forward a bit. I do think this is cool. And this encompasses both an owner and drivers. I think what's really cool for racing overall, but it helps NASCAR, even though it's not technically NASCAR, is what's going on in the off season here with some of the dirt racing, with also what Dale Jr. did with the Bud Red 8 car back in South Carolina, is they are making racing a 12-month sport, right? Like usually, I mean, racing, NASCAR is a long season. It's a good, 9 months. Yeah. But if you think about it, I mean, one of the biggest stories of last year after the season, Dale Earnhardt Jr. runs that red Bud 8 car, at Florence. And then look, you had the Tulsa shootout, great finish between Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell. You had the Chili Bowl. Kyle Larson wins his third Chili Bowl. You had Kyle Busch there, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. So I do think it's pretty cool that you're getting, because of the dirt racing, there's a lot of fans watching flow racing, people that maybe weren't into dirt. So you do have the superstar drivers continuing to promote motorsports, even though it's not NASCAR.
Yeah. That that goes back to one of my scenes that I think I told Lisa or Jim or somebody here a year or two ago, man. When we came through, and I keep saying when we came through, but you got to quantify that with when we came through, it exploded, Charlie. Something happened. Whether what we were doing was right or wrong, I don't know. But I watched it when I got out of the sport. When I got out of the sport, man, you couldn't get a ticket to an event or sold out. But one of the things that we used to do, especially with me with Skull and then with Remington, if we were there Friday and Saturday and Sunday, I guarantee you on Fridays, 90% of the drivers were somewhere within a 50-mile radius of that racetrack doing some kind of event, whether it be at a Saturday night local dirt track, right, or a little asphalt track, or some big community fair deal or whatever. Drivers were out there, and the drivers not doing it because that's what they wanted to do. They were doing it because that's what the sponsors at NASCAR required. Man, we had to go out and do all that stuff. And if you live within a 50-mile radius of the racetrack that weekend, you had a chance to see half the drivers in the field because they were going to be somewhere doing autographs. And that fan made that connection with that driver, right? And you do this every weekend for a day or two with all the drivers every weekend all year long, and you multiply that by year after year after year, right? You not only do you keep your fan base going, but you grow fan base. Because I'm gonna tell you, Charles, every time we went to those deals and the fans come up, guess what they had with them? 2 or 3 kids hanging off their shoulders, right? And those kids became fans, right? So that's one thing I think the drivers do. And then with these guys doing this stuff like with the Chili Bowl, all that stuff that's going on with the dirt racing, and Earnhardt doing the show in Florence, all that stuff makes a big difference, man. It makes more difference, I think, than what anybody realizes.
All right. How about Mike Wallace? There was the announcement, maybe, I don't know, a month or so ago, he was going to run the Daytona 500, or attempt to qualify. Then a couple weeks later, NASCAR comes out and they say basically he wasn't approved for inactivity. My take is, look, I know he's 65, hasn't raced in a while, but also you have to qualify. So to me, let the man qualify. That's how I feel. What do you think?
Yeah,
Let the man
man,
attempt it.
there's so many angles to this, Charlie. You know, the problem I'm having with it is I spoke with Mike.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke with Mike at length before he got the call that he couldn't do it, right? This was after the fact, after he announced it and all. I called him. We talked a while, very congratulatory, because Mike, it's a different deal with Mike. I mean, you've known him all these years, and he lost Carla back in the year.
Mm-hmm.
So, as brother Mike Kenny's pointed out on this show many times, Mike's kind of looked for something, right? He's a little bit lost soul, right? With his wife being gone. So this kind of filled that. And Mike's deal was, you know what he told me? He says, you know what I'm looking forward to the boat, Rick? I said, what? He said, having my family down there, having my family out on pit road, having all the family there, and taking a picture beside my race car with me, before the start of the Daytona 500. That's what that's what he was looking most forward to, is that deal, right? The the deal that came down on him, man, I don't know. I mean, did he talk to the wrong person to start with, and he got the yes? If he hadn't got the yes to begin with, then it wouldn't be such a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. But he got the yes from someone that is above in the structure of NASCAR. They're above the people that made the decision, the way I understand it. You got the competition side, then the hierarchy of NASCAR, and that's something that's a little bit different than our day. In our day, if you go to Bill France Jr., and ask him, can I drive up here? Can I drive this race? Bill Jr. says, yeah, we'll let you. Well, case closed, right? Nobody's going to overrule Bill France Jr., okay? Although Mike didn't talk to Jim France. Let me back that up. But he did talk to somebody high up in the organization, and we won't talk about names because there's no use doing that. But, it pointed out a little bit of a disconnect or a power who's in charge of what, the competition side, and the competition side, then the executive side and all that. I think that just gives you an example of, some of the separations within the corporate structure of our sport. I think it kind of answers that question a little bit if you're trying to figure some of that out. But the bad news is I just truly feel bad for Mike. Right? That's on a personal level. Now, on a competition side, Charlie, the way I looked at it, Mike, 800 starts in all the races, and I don't give a damn what you say when you're 65 years old, your reflexes are not as fast. They're just not. But see here, there's this crossover point. And as a race car driver, when you're young, you got no experience, you don't know what the hell you're doing. Well, as you go through life and racing, you get better and better and better at everything, right? You're just better because you're racing more, you got more experience. At some point, the age of your body kicks in, and your reflexes start slowing down, right? Well, then those two lines, how you do this? Can I do this? Those two lines intersect somewhere, right? Where your reflexes are slowing down, but your experience is still going up. So totally, you're still a good driver, And as age goes on and the reflexes get worse and worse and worse, and the experience starts slowing down, then that whole overall thing starts coming down. Where Mike Wallace is on that crossover on that chart, I have no idea. But Daytona, Talladega is one of those deals where his experience and his knowledge, and Mike was one of the good ones. He was one of the good ones on super speedways. He could, he was good with drafting. He's just very good with that. Some guys are and some guys aren't. He's one of the good ones. Was he old enough to the experience level that it wouldn't overcome his age? I don't know, but they put it out like he's not in competition. I think somebody said, Kenny Schrader right now, 70 years old. If he wanted to come back and run the Daytona 500, they'd let him run because he hasn't run NASCAR, but he runs the dirt tracks every single week, or 80 races a year. So if that fact is the case, then fine, same way with our boss, Kenny Wallace. If he wanted to race, they feel like they let him race because of his experience. If Mike had been out there on a couple racetracks somewhere running something, would NASCAR have let him race? Probably so. Probably so. So, but the other thing too, Charlie, about this whole deal, this is the first time this has happened. We've never turned anybody down because of their age that I know of. Maybe we have, we just didn't know about it or hear about it. But Morgan was a good example. Morgan Shepherd raced. He's older than Mike is now, and he kept racing, but he was there about every week or two, right, racing. So they let him do that, Charlie. I don't know. It's just a tough situation for Mike. I hate it for him. I understand his side. I understand NASCAR's side. But here's the other thing, Charlie. That again, I don't know how it always friggin' happens with NASCAR, but there's always this timing issue, man. Right? There's always this timing issue with NASCAR. It just blows up right in their face because at the same time we're telling Mike Wallace he can't race, we're letting Elio Castroneves race, right? And hadn't been in one of these cars, but he has been in a race car, right? So all that does is gives fans the fuel for the fire. And I've been reading it for 2 weeks, right? And I don't know. It just seems like we're always shooting ourselves in the foot with time. There's always these timing things that goes on. It just kills us. But it is what it is, dude.
Yeah. And maybe you and I disagree. We've talked about this before, but I do think even controversy, it's the old all publicity is good publicity. Even if people are arguing and debating, it's good for the sport. And you bring up Elio, that's where I was going to go next. So perfect timing there. You also brought up Ken Schrader and Kenny Wallace, and I'm kind of stealing Schrader's line here because when he said this, I agreed with him on Herman Schrader a week or so ago when they talked about this. So basically, my opinion is I love the idea of having the 41st driver for a world-class driver to come in because I think it's good for the sport. If it's going to be down the road, whoever the hell it is, somebody from IndyCar, Max Verstappen, I think that's good for the sport. But what Schrader said was, it's the Daytona 500. It's already the biggest stock car race in the world. So for me, like I'm not mad, by the way, that Elio is going to be in this race. It doesn't bother me at all. But I also think maybe for some of the non-crown jewel events, for the non-playoff races, where you get into kind of the dog days of the NASCAR season, that's where I feel like a story like this can be good for the sport. You probably don't need it for the Great American Race where everybody's watching the Daytona 500 anyway. Again, I'm not complaining, but Daytona doesn't need anything extra, in my opinion.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And I don't know, man. It's just to try not to stray away from what your point is here, but it's just, to me, it's just so weird that they would make this rule. I mean, they would have never, ever, ever, ever made a not rule, but it is a rule like this in the past, right? But this rule of giving, what's it called again? The what?
Well, it's a special exemption, but is it OEP, whatever it is? It's a special
whatever
exemption.
it is, OEP, whatever they call it. It's just, I don't know. That one to me just strikes me as weird. I mean, I get it. Again, I get it. And this goes towards what we talk about all the time here, Charlie. And that's the show, right? It's the show. What we're trying to do with our show, to make our show more interesting in the pods. So I don't know. My eyesight isn't good.
No, it's Open Exemption Provisional, OEP.
OEP. Okay. OEP. Gagrena, OEP. All right, the OEP, right? We're going to talk a lot about the OEP as the year goes on. We're going to see how this works out. But for Elio, for Castroneves to be in the race, it's a good deal. It's a good deal for our sport, for him to be in the race. It was a good deal for our sport when AJ Foyt would run, right? It's a good deal when Mario Andretti would run. And we're talking 60s, and then the 1960s when those guys did that. Big name from IndyCar world running in the Daytona 500. Big deal. And the hell, they won the thing. AJ won it. Mario won it. I doubt Elio will win it, but he might. But, I'm with you. We don't really need – you don't need the extra hype for that. Try to keep it pure, But, the race you go somewhere, go to Kansas or wherever you go, well, hell, you can't say that because they fill that track up. But, yeah, I agree with all that.
And let me ask you, because I think I could be wrong. I think I kind of know sometimes how you think about some of these things, just because we've done a show now for a year. It is part of your thinking also that you've always said when you raced, you didn't have a safety net, right? And you had to qualify to get in. Now it's different now with the charters, but you're letting this dude in. Whereas back in the day, you guys had to grind it out just to get in the show.
Yeah, and that's what makes it tough for an old veteran like me, right? But you lived your whole career fighting that battle, and you watched other teams, drivers go home. You watched Fortune 500 companies go home with a suite full of executives of that Fortune 500 company sitting in the suite on Sunday to watch the race, and their car didn't qualify for the race, dude. I mean, I watched that. I witnessed that as a part of all that. And it was a struggle, to make sure you were in that show that week. And that went on a lot. And, now by just having somebody say, well, we like this guy. He's, everybody in the world knows him. He gets 10,000 hits on social media every 3 hours. We need him in this race, right? And that's basically what it really comes down to, and I get it. It drives the ratings. I mean, so much about our sport is TV ratings, and things like that drive our ratings. So, if you love our sport, Charlie, you got to understand what drives the sport anymore, right? And you got to understand that things that used to drive the sport maybe not necessarily drive it with that highest percentage as it did when we were there. Maybe other things drive it now, and that's what we're looking at. I don't know. Well, you know what I need to do, dude? I need to go to Daytona or Charlotte, and I need to go into their competition/marketing side and just spend a week, listening to meetings and knowing what, knowing what they are. NASCAR, somebody in marketing or the competition marketing side, invite me down. And honestly, I won't say a word. I won't say anything, right? Other than try to help you guys. But I would really, 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 truly love to understand, where they're at with everything, with the decisions they make and why they make them. We're on the outside. You reacted to the decision that they make, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that all the times that they get the message out why they make decisions they make. I'm not sure that it's really put out in lay terms for fans to understand. So I need to be invited I need to be invited to this and just sit down and listen and formulate in my mind, where are we at and what we're trying to get to. They're all doing what they think is best for the sport. We always did that. But the decisions are made, and it makes it hard for fans to understand some stuff. The fans feel like they're a little bit disenchanted because something comes out, but it's not explained properly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a little disconnect there. I can help with that.
There you go. NASCAR, invite Rick Mast to the marketing meetings. I'd like to go too, actually. If NASCAR wants to invite me as well, I'm down. So, okay. We also have the, we'll call it the Kyle Larson rule. And by the way, before we move on, I just want to say, I do think it's cool. I think it's cool to have the special exemptions, the OEP. I just don't think you need them. You obviously don't need them for the playoff races, and you don't need them for the crown jewel events. You need them for some of these others, I think. That's where I would use them. But let's move on to the waiver situation. We'll call it the Kyle Larson rule. I think this is pretty fair because I understand last year fans, if they were pissed, if they go to the Coke 600, you had the weather, you want to see Kyle Larson, right? You pay money to see Kyle Larson because of the weather. You didn't get to see him race. Then they call that race. Not really Kyle Larson's fault, but he made the choice. He could have left Indy, but you're not going to leave the Indy 500. But the fact that these guys now won't have the playoff points, I think that's a pretty fair way to handle this. I want to see drivers continue to attempt the double, but I do think it's okay to punish them a bit because this is NASCAR. This is NASCAR. NASCAR shouldn't go out of its way to promote IndyCar, even though it's good for racing overall, but still you have to look out for your own league.
Oh yeah, and Rick Hendrick kind of opened the door on this, Charlie, last year when it was all said and done. When the Coke 600 was over with, when they were interviewing, Rick Hendrick said, "Well, if we do this again, for sure, excuse me, the Coke 600 is the main thing. If we're leading the race at Indy 500 and it's rain delayed or whatever, he'll have to come in and we'll have to get on the helicopter and come back. So Rick either knew then what NASCAR was thinking about the future, or he just put that statement out there. So, you've got to do it. I mean, you're one or the other. I mean, you're the two premier motorsports leagues in our country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just, it's just circumstances with these races the way they go. And really, the Indy 500 hasn't been rain delayed that many times over the years. So, it shouldn't be that big a deal all the time, although last year pointed out the flaw in it. So, if they decide to do that and they go up there, man, hey, think about that, Charlie. I'm leading the Indy 500. I got 10 laps to go, right? But I have to pit now to get on the helicopter in order to get to Charlotte in time to start the race, right? What you gonna do, man? Right? Like, who was it? Jim Brown said that to Richard Pryor that time. What you gonna do, boy? What you gonna do? Right? You have to go back and look that all up. What you gonna do? Oh, man, that would be so tough. But if the rule's there, it's there, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to pontificate about it. You don't have to chew over it or argue about it. There's the rule. Here's what we're going to do. Make your choice. Figure out which bed you're going to lie in.
Okay, so speaking of rules, and I was trying to find the exact rule here, but the other part of the rules, you had the damaged vehicle policy, which I think is interesting. It's kind of some minutia there, but also the whole race manipulation deal, which we saw last year at the end. And so what do you think about that in general? Because you obviously had some team play going on, and this was Austin Dillon. You had Bubba Wallace. It was the whole situation with Christopher Bell and William Byron. How do you think this should be handled? Because also you have some manufacturer play on super speedways in terms of when you pit and being out there as a manufacturer group. How do you think NASCAR handled this? What should they do? Because you don't, in my opinion, you don't want to see what we saw last year, where clearly you had cars that were not being able to pass other cars. In that race, Brad Keselowski, I mean, I'd have been pissed if I was him. He's getting held up because everybody's trying to get their manufacturers in the Final Four there. What do you think?
Yeah, one of the problems with officiating, especially in NASCAR, is gray area. The gray area is just, it's the toughest thing there is to officiate in racing. So we've always had these big wide gray areas in our sport, real wide areas, man. And NASCAR over the years have tried to bring that area into black and white, right? And this is one of those situations where, all right, how are we going to make this black and white, right? Did they really just do that, or did they not? Did that car really just hold that guy up on purpose, or did he not, right? How in the hell do you officiate that, right? When it gets so blatant where everybody can see it, yeah, okay, we're going to penalize them. But where is that point, Charlie, right? Think about that a second. You're officiating that race, and you've got to decide. That guy's doing that on purpose, right? Excuse me. I couldn't do it. I mean, honestly, if I was the official, I don't know that I could sit there. Now, if somebody takes it so far, yeah, where everybody sees it, yeah, okay. But if you're sitting there thinking as a racer, and me as a racer, I could maybe pick up on it quicker. I'm like, I know what he's doing. But am I 100% positive that's what he's doing? No, I'm not.
But hold on.
But I think I know. Okay.
But in the case I brought up, wasn't that pretty damn egregious? Didn't we all know what was going on?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. And again, I just think that there's going to be sometime this year a call is going to be made. There's going to be an argument. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. Yes, you. Well, it doesn't matter. You got penalized, right? So yeah. I don't know. That's going to be one. It's going to be interesting to follow. We'll have some shows on this year, I think. And Thomas makes a good point. Maybe telemetry. Yeah, certain things you can look at with telemetry and figure it out. Yes, that would help. There's no doubt about that. But I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see. And damn crap, shit, far. You go to Talladega, you're always manipulating. You manipulate
Yeah.
all the time. You're always manipulating. But yeah, I get it. I don't know. I think this one's going to play out to where we're going to see some more changes. I think before it's all said and done, there's going to be some more rules written. There's going to be some rewording done. There's going to be more understandings about things. I don't think we've heard the last of this ruling yet.
All right. I do want to move on to some other
Sure.
sports topics, some football, but anything else NASCAR on your mind that we didn't hit on?
No, I think we've pretty much covered the gamut here. Been kind of a slow off season, you might say, with the stuff. We had, the Mike Wallace, the junior thing, and the rules changes. So, what that means, Charlie? That means we're going to be at Daytona. There's going to be more shit, and the 14 podcasts are going to be able to keep up with. That's typically what goes on. You spend all winter, everybody yapping about everything and everything that's going on, and everybody's pissed off, everybody's happy, right? You get Daytona, it's kind of ho-ho. Then you have these winters where nothing's going on, right? And like everything's pretty cool. You get Daytona and all hell breaks loose. That's typically the way it works. So we'll see. Of course, the winter's not over yet. The off season's not over yet.
Right. I forgot though, because it has been a while since new developments, but it seems like on the lawsuit front, the momentum has shifted towards the teams, at least for now.
Yep. For now. And again, excuse me, choked up. Damn, there goes my phone. I'm sorry, folks.
It's all good.
That's my best buddy in the world. But anyhow, it has, the last rule. They changed judges. How do you do that, Charlie? They got a new judge assigned. And the new judge come in and said, nah, we ain't going to do it that way. This way we're going to do it. So that swung back towards, the latest ruling swung back towards the two teams where they could. And that really went back to what I thought was going to happen. Anyhow, I think we talked about it. We figured they could keep the lawsuit going, but they would let them, run this year with the charters in place, which goes against what NASCAR is trying to do there. But we all kind of figured they would let them run with the charter. So that's what the new judge allowed them to do while they still fight about the overall thing. So who knows?
All right, we have almost 1,100 people watching live. We have about 1,000 watching. We're putting it on X live as well, and I had we retweeted it from the Kenny Wallace account. So about 1,100 people, 1,000 on X, and about 100 or so on YouTube. How about just folks. Elsewhere?
Everybody's happy.
Hello, elsewhere in the world of sports. So this time of year, Rick Mast, are you watching a lot of football? Are you watching more college or NFL? I've always been much more of a college guy. I grew up a huge Ohio State fan, so last night was a good night. My whole family, I got brothers and sister that went to Ohio State, a bunch of aunts and uncles, so I was born into an Ohio State family. I never really had a NFL team that I really rooted for. We're about an hour from Detroit, so you had Barry Sanders and the Lions growing up. We're about 2 hours from Cleveland. The Browns kind of stunk when I was growing up, then they moved. So I'm all into college football. I did start to watch a few of the playoff games, NFL, this past weekend, but I'm sad college football is over, but I can't complain because, again, the one team I care about, the Buckeyes, I'm 42 years old, Rick, and my favorite team has now won 3 national championships in my lifetime, and all 3 since, 2002? So I can't complain. And you know what? I think a program on the level of Ohio State, with their resources, they probably should win one national championship about every decade. I think that's fair.
Yeah, man. Congratulations to you, all you Buckeyes, right? Dennis Bickmeyer, the president of Richmond Raceway, big-time Buckeye. He's graduate, big-time Buckeye. Well, he's not president any longer, but for years. And he was always, we're texting all the time about that deal, and I'm gigging him, getting on him about it. But congratulations to you, Charlie. I mean, me personally, I never felt it until, was it 19? When our Virginia Wahoos won the National Basketball Championship. And that was like, damn, that was cool. I mean, that was really, really cool because, followed that team since 76 in the football team. And, man, the college deal is just killing me right now. The NIL is it just every time I turn around, and maybe it's because it's affecting the teams that I follow more than other teams, right? Maybe the teams that I follow are just not, not doing it properly yet. But our Wahoos have hit rock bottom in the basketball deal. 3-4
Mm-hmm.
years ago, we were champions, right? Our football team's not doing worth a crap, right? And we lost one of the greatest coaches to ever coach in college sports, Tony Bennett. We lost him because of NIL, dude. You know, he more or less said it. And so then the other side of it is, well, you got to get with, if you're going to be a coach in today's world, you got to get with the program. Nobody says, I haven't heard anybody say we don't want players to get paid. Everybody wants players to get paid, but you know, the way they're going about it, in my personal opinion, the NCAA, whoever the NCAA is, ought to go in there that one day, lock the door, escort everybody out, whoever they are, escort them all out, and escort new people in. Because you can't screw up things any worse than this NCAA has screwed our collegiate sports up in the last 10 years. There's nobody could screw it up as bad as those guys have done. But then, you know, then you look at somebody like Ohio State, Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame's going to always have their kids. I don't care what they do with the NIL, because there's certain mindset of kids are going to go to Notre Dame because that's where they want to go, right? All the other schools have got to fight over, number one, the prestige of the school, and then the money thing kicks in. You're like, well, yeah, we might have a chance to win there, but I'm going to make another $400,000 if I go to this team, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think a lot of that stuff in the transfer portal, man. I guess a few things got Rick Mast pissed off this week. It's the NCAA group, the committee. Fire every damn one of them. Every one of them. I don't care if they're the janitor. Get them out of there. Lock the door. Put a new group in that. And you know what I'd put in to run this thing? You know what I would do, Charlie? I'd go with Jay Wright.
Okay.
Nick Saban, Roy Williams.
How about Tony Bennett?
Tony Bennett. That's who I would put running this thing. I really would. Yeah. They probably don't want that headache, but that's who I'd put. That's who I'd put in there running. And all of them say the same thing. You know, we agree. We want our kids to make money, you know. But damn, we can't get in the bid more. I mean, if you're a college coach, you might as well be. Nowadays, you might as well be an NFL head coach. I mean, all you're doing, you know, you're trying to or a general manager of a professional team, because you're bidding the rights. You're dealing with the agents, right? It ain't about school anymore. But anyhow, past all that, the Redskins, man. When I was little coming up, we had one little TV station we could get. It was very snowy, and my uncle had it. We didn't even get it at our house hardly. I had to go up on the hill and watch Sunday football, and I watched the Redskins, man. I watched the Redskins all through the years. Mm-hmm. Redskins have always been number one, and, you know, we haven't had anything. We haven't won anything since 1991, I think. Last time we were in the NFC Championship, and here we are, man, 2025. We're going to the NCAA. Crap. We're going into the NFC National League Football Championship, dude, against the Eagles, our sworn enemy, the Eagles. Well, the Cowboys are Eagles. Yeah. But anyhow, that's the one that's got me excited right now is the Redskins. Damn it. The Commanders. The Commanders, not the Redskins. The Commanders. I don't care. They're still the Redskins to me. I'm just too friggin' old, Charlie, to change. I'm going to always say Redskins, dude.
It's all good. Hey, so you bring up a good point, though, about NIL. And I think about this, too. So clearly, I'm an Ohio State fan. They have a $20 million roster. Not every school can have that. I'm very aware of that. But also, I went to Bradley University, which is a mid-major. We don't even have a football program. We have a basketball program, which is pretty damn good. But you're going to see, if you get a kid who goes to Bradley and his freshman year, like, let's be real. He grew up, he probably wanted to go to Illinois. He probably wanted to go to Indiana, Wisconsin, whatever. He goes to Bradley. He averages 17 points a game his first year. Well, all of a sudden now Illinois wants him. So it's going to hurt the mid-majors. And you bring up a great point. NIL is great for Ohio State. Look at Virginia. Virginia won with a style in basketball. Tony Bennett did more with less, right? He didn't have these blue chip recruits. But he was playing his style. He won a national championship, had unbelievable success. And I know part of the reason he left is all the NIL crap. And now it's really hard for a team like that to compete now when it's pretty much all about the money.
Yeah. Look at Louisville. Louisville sucked tip now for forever. And look at them this year, man. They're one of the hottest teams in the nation. They got a new coach. All the players on that team are new to the team, right? They brought them in from the NIL and all that, and they're doing great, and that's a good thing for that school. But Charlie, I don't know. Being old school, I just got used to Bennett's deal. We would start reading. You would start, if you're a fan of that team, I would start reading the recruiting deals back when guys were sophomores and juniors in high school. We'd see who Bennett was recruiting, and we'd keep up with that, right? And he was some of them excuse me, some of them we'd get, and some of them we wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But then we got him. We got him on the team. Excuse me. And they would redshirt the guy, right?
Yeah.
So you go to the ball games and you've seen this guy you followed for 2 years, and he's sitting there redshirted, right? And then he finally the next year he gets to play. Well, by his third or fourth year, man, he's a superstar, and you're winning the ACC championship every year. You're going to the tournament every year. And then the next year or two, that guy that you watched, right, that maybe was a 3-star recruit, guess what, Charlie? He's playing in the friggin' NBA, right? That's what Bennett did. He brought decent talent in, worked their asses off, and learned how to play the game the right way, and ended up making millions in the NBA. That was one. Who's the last guy? Trey Murphy had transferred into Virginia a few years ago. Good player, but he transferred in, and his statement was, I want to play in the NBA. I've got to play for Tony Bennett for a couple of years to figure out how to improve my stock to play in the NBA, right? And he's one of the top. Well, he's above major. He's above mid pay scale in the NBA right now, right? Doing very well. And that's what I personally enjoyed about watching our Virginia team through the years, right? Then NIL comes along, all that's gone. You're going to get instant gratification for 1 year. Whatever guys we brought in, whatever guys we hire from the NIL to come into our team, and we'll go watch them play, we get instant gratification for 1 year, because the next year you're going to have a whole different set of faces. And that's what it is right now, right? And if you're going to enjoy it, you got to accept this is the way I'm going to enjoy this, right? Now, granted, our Who's right now are sucking hind tit. They're not playing very well. So, that makes me more disgusted. Right. But, that's the reality. That's the reality of what we live in right now.
All right. Look at this guy. This guy, Ronnie McKee says, if I wanted to listen about football, I would watch ESPN or a half dozen other places. Come on, Ronnie. I mean, we did 40 minutes of racing talk. It is the off season. Okay. We're just ending on a little football. So I said, come on, man. Let's end on this, though, because our fearless leader, the great Kenny Wallace, is in Italy. He's in Rome. He was at the Vatican yesterday. He's checking out the Ferrari Museum, I believe, today. I think he put a video out there. So when we're done, I will put that here on the Kenny Wallace YouTube channel and also Kenny Wallace Media on podcast. So, Rick Mast, what's the greatest vacation you ever took in your life?
CMA Fest 4 years ago, Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
The most fun I ever had, right? We went down, Sarah and I, with our two twin daughters, Sarah and Katie. We went down there like 1,000 degrees, right? Hotter than hell all week. But I'm telling you, we got that on like Tuesday. We stayed till, we stayed till midnight on Sunday night. The last, they do that deal in the stadium. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they do these concerts. And so the last concert's always on Sunday night. It ended at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning or something. Then we drove home, right? Because I think the girls had to be back to work next morning or something. Anyhow, I drove all night to get home. But anyhow, that was probably the most fun because I'd never been there before. Been to Nashville, but it's the happiest friggin' bunch of people, right? And if you like music at all, if you got any kind of music in you at all that you like, you cannot not like this place. You just go down the street, you go into this bar, and there's somebody playing music, and they're damn good as all these people trying to make it in the music industry. And you walk out of that door, go 20 feet into another door, and there they are again, just, building after building after building. And then you go anywhere you want to go. It's all about music. Just happy friggin' people. A lot of them are, you see, I always keep saying drunk. I say drunk is inebriated a little bit, but everybody's just happy, right? Everybody's happy. Now, some of the neatest deals they used to do when I was with Skoll, dude, they had two mansions they owned. They own one in Watch Hill, Rhode Island. They own one in Florida, right down below this place. You heard of this place called Mar-a-Lago,
I
right?
have. Yes. In the news.
Right down the street from Mar-a-Lago, UST, US Tobacco Skull. They own this place. So what would happen in the winter, like in January in the off season, we would go down to the place near Mar-a-Lago at their mansion, and it would be me. It'd be all the drivers and the executives. It'd be like me and our wives, me, Harry Gant, Snake Perdome, AJ Foyt, the current drivers, right? Most time when I was there is us four. And our wives, and it would be the CEO of the company, CFO of the company, the president of the company. It'd be like, 5 or 6 of the top execs of the company, right? And Johnny Hayes, of course. And you stay in this big mansion, dude, and you get up early, like 6 o'clock in the morning, and you go in there and they have this big long table and a feast of breakfast, right? Well, 6:30, you're out the door. The guys were all out, and you're on the golf course by 7 o'clock playing golf. Then when that was done, you come back to the mansion, sit down for this long feast of food for lunch, right? In the afternoon, all those people, the rich people, they go take naps. I remember the first time we went, me and Sharon, we ate lunch, we looked around, we couldn't find anybody. Where the hell's everybody at? Right? Well, they're all taking naps. That's when I realized rich people take naps. Then you get all dressed up fancy for the supper, dude. Now, the supper was the big deal, right? Or dinner, I guess dinner. They call it dinner. And it was the damnedest bunch of exquisite food, the best food you'd ever eat, right? And you do all this, and it'd just be a cool. Then you sit around shooting crap, and you do that for a week. And then Watch Hill, Rhode Island, they had the same thing up there. We would do that on an off weekend. In other words, like we'd run Daytona the July 4th, and either next week we'd run New Hampshire, or it'd be a week off, and they would do it like then and get all the drivers and wives up there. And that's where those are very, very strong remembrances, very good, happy remembrances of my deal with U.S. Tobacco. And but they were cool vacations, man. You're a complete decadence, Charlie, man. You're just, excuse me. You were weighted on hand and foot, right? And eat the best gourmet food you'd ever eat in your life, and sit down with these executives. Man, and it's like, they're no different from us. It's like the wives ruled the roost, right? You always wonder. I think a lot of people wonder when you get to be in those kind of positions. I bet those guys don't take any crap off anybody, right? Wrong. It's no different than you, Bubba, you, Robert. It's no different. Those guys are ruled by their wives. It's the same deal as we all have to go through. It's no different. It's just, I don't know, just fun. And even other executives I met, Charlie, through the years with these powerful companies, they're always the same thing, man. It's always the wives ruling the roost. It was just fun to watch all that happen. Made me feel good about things.
I love it. Well, I'll tell you what, we're almost at an hour. We're both coughing. So it's a perfect time to call it. Good show for everybody watching. Please comment, like, subscribe on YouTube. Please rate and subscribe on Kenny Wallace Media on the podcast. Those 5-star reviews really help. And Rick, we'll end it like this because we started the show. It was 0 degrees in St. Louis. It's warmed up. It's 1 degree now in St. Louis. But if you see that, it feels like -8. It feels like -8.
That's ridiculous. We've got a regular heat wave here.
16, baby.
Yeah. Heat wave here. Damn,
all right.
1 degree. That's just ridiculous. Hey, what do you think about? What's everybody think about this? I got a little thing happening. When I was 17 or 18 or 19 years old, I grew a beard. Then one time in the 90s, I grew a Fu Manchu thing, right? That's the only time I've ever had facial hair. And now I've got this thing going. Can y'all see that?
I like it.
Some people, I've had all kinds of comments, Charlie. Some say you look more distinguished. Some said you look older. Some says it looks scraggly. Some says you're in the part where it don't look good before it looks good. A couple of them said, "Man, I like that, baby. That's sexy, right? I like it." So I don't know. I've had a couple say, "Makes you look old." I don't know. What if I just put some dye in it, make it darker? What do you think?
Oh, like Ryan
just
Day.
shave the damn thing off.
That's the thing. People will criticize Ryan Day, the Ohio State football coach, because I think he might be dyeing the beard and the hair. I think
he
he's
is.
45, so he's not that old.
Yeah.
But his
Yeah.
beard and hair jet black. So I think he's using some dye.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. Maybe before I shave it, if I do shave it off, maybe I'll put some brown dye in it for next week and see what I don't know. To see what people say here on the Rick Bass show. I don't know.
There you go.
I don't know. I don't know that I like it.
So comment on Rick's beard and also the glasses. And I'll just say, it's like what you said about the big time CEOs. It all comes down to what the wife likes. For example, I used to always be clean shaven. I almost never in my life wore a beard. And I don't really even call this a beard. Like I trim it a lot. I always shave my neck, but my wife loves the beard. So I've basically been, after probably the first 30 years of my life, I was always clean shaven. And then the last, 11, 12, since I met my wife, I almost always have this going on now because she likes it.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's always the overriding factor, but, you try to get your opinion set, before you have to deal with your bride, to have a little bit of argument of fortitude. But, I get it. But if that's what she likes, then I'd go with it, dude. I don't know. We'll have to see what everybody says about this.
All right. Comment. Love you all. Thank you. We had 1,320 people are watching right now. A lot of them on X. Let's check the numbers here. We got 700 total so far on YouTube. So thank you very much. The Rick Mast Show will be coming back. We'll be going crazy during NASCAR season. So Rick, thank you, sir. We'll see you next week.
All right, guys. Let me know what y'all think. Toodaloo.
All right. End stream.